Purchasing power is getting squeezed by many different fronts these days. After paying for housing, energy, gas, groceries, and other monthly bills, most of us are left with an increasingly smaller amount of money for discretionary expenses. And some of us aren't even spending that money at all, but rather saving it to weather the storm that is ahead. Consequently, even some of the biggest companies in the United States are suffering from declining sales, shrinking profits, and weaker earnings results. Many of them were already barely making it after 2 very complicated years for our economy, with a pandemic, supply chain problems, inflation, and soaring commodity prices making conditions extremely difficult for these businesses. And now, they're having to make some tough choices as we enter the holiday season. Even big names such as McDonalds and Disney are announcing they'll be closing several locations in an attempt to cut costs and survive the downturn that is unfolding before our eyes. In today's video, we've listed some industry giants that recently disclosed plans to shutter dozens or even hundreds of locations. Before checking this list, please support our work with a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Without further ado, here are 15 biggest retailers in America closing down stores right now. 1. Disney. The mega brand known for its legendary movie production is going through a major restructuring plan that has even recently brought back former CEO Bob Iger back to his position after the company's stock lost almost 40% of its value this year. The pandemic and inflationary pressures led Disney to shut down over 60 stores in 2021, when even its online business started to falter. In the fourth quarter, Disney's streaming business lost $1.5 billion. And the fact that consumers really began reducing their discretionary spending in 2022 didn't help the brand to turn things around. Another 59 stores are in the process of being shut down in the U.S. right now, totaling 119 closings in 2 years. After the downsizing is completed, there will only be 23 Disney stores left in the country, as the conglomerate tries to focus on its digital platforms and social media. 2. GameStop. The troubled video game retailer became a stock market and media sensation earlier last year when a legion of investing pranksters made headlines the world over by sending GameStop stock to the moon in an orchestrated move to hit hedge funds that were betting on the chain's continued demise. But it doesn't seem like any of them actually shopped in there. With falling revenue and negative sales growth, the world's largest gaming retailer has been shedding hundreds of stores over the last 2 years, shuttering a total of 1,000 locations in 2021. Now, 557 more stores are conducting clearance sales to go out of business as GameStop starts switching to focus to online operations. 3. Best Buy. The electronics retailer has been quietly closing stores over the past few years, shutting 20 premises in both 2019 and 2020. In early 2021, it announced plans to close a higher number of stores due to supply chain and labor shortages. By November, 60 more locations were closed and over 2,000 employees were laid off. In January 2022, the company said it would reduce the length of its lease terms, and it would stop subsidizing many of its brick-and-mortar stores, meaning that a new round of cuts could be abrupt. During an earnings call on the third quarter, the company said it was experiencing a significant decline in foot traffic, and it was going to shutter at least 20 more stores by the end of 2022. Its decision to focus on online sales is making many retail experts argue that the company may disappear from the U.S. retail landscape completely before mid-2024. 4. Microsoft. Even after enjoying a huge profit boost during the pandemic, as millions of people became dependent on its software for their home working and virtual school setups, Microsoft's real estate obligations were still weighing on the company's balance sheet. Now, all Microsoft sales are moving online as the tech behemoth closes its last remaining 70 physical stores in the U.S. 5. Walgreens. Pharmacy chain Walgreens is the latest victim of supply chain disruptions that are leading to shortages of antibiotics, allergy medications, anti-inflammatory pills, antivirals, and more. The product stockouts and declining sales are making Walgreens get rid of underperforming locations to cut costs. Last month alone, the chain silently closed 4 locations around New York, Florida, Colorado, and Massachusetts. But according to MoneyWise, the recent shutdowns are part of a plan that will ultimately result in the shutdown of over 200 stores. 6. CVS. Suffering from similar issues, the drugstore chain and Walgreens competitor CVS is trying to reduce its brick-and-mortar footprint by 10%, bringing its total number of closures to 900. According to Neil Saunders, managing director at Global Data, too many CVS stores are stuck in the past with bad lighting, depressing interiors, messy merchandising, and a weak assortment of products. It's thought that the closures will enable the chain to invest in its remaining stores while boosting its rapidly expanding digital presence. In recent months, CVS has been steadily shutting locations in places including Falls Church, Virginia, Fresno, California, and Johnson City, Tennessee. The closures will help establish a new retail footprint strategy aligned to evolving customer needs, according to a company spokesperson. 7. Bath & Body Works. With sales down by 37% on its physical locations, parent company L Brands announced that 50 Bath & Body Works stores will be closing in the U.S. by the final quarter of 2022. The company also reported plans to slash 130 corporate jobs in an effort to cut costs amid rampant inflation and rising supply chain and transportation costs. 8. L'Occitane. The famous French beauty retailer has seen its in-store sales collapse by 56.5% in the busiest shopping season of 2021. In the holidays, the company's earnings fell short of investors' expectations, which prompted its leadership team to introduce a new restructuring plan to emerge from Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection this year. As a result, the beauty brand is now closing 23 of its 166 stores across the U.S., and it expects to reduce its brick-and-mortar footprint to 133 locations in 2023. 9. Chipotle. While many people still regularly visit this restaurant chain, not many are aware that Chipotle has been suffering greatly. Citing major labor issues, declining sales, and supply chain challenges, Chipotle is permanently closing 65 restaurants. Lori Charlo, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Chipotle, said in a statement that it's been hard to find managers to lead the restaurant and to hire new staff members to keep doors open. Because of these ongoing staffing challenges, there is no probability of reopening in the foreseeable future. So we've made the decision to permanently close the locations, she said. 10. Office Depot. New reports reveal that Office Depot is preparing to conduct another round of store closings this year. Between 2020 and 2021, over 263 Office Depot locations were shuttered as the retailer grappled with the effects of the pandemic, shortages, and problems at its distribution facilities. Now, the company's most recent financial results show that its retail division sales were down by 11% in the third quarter compared to the same time last year. According to the CEO, Jerry Smith, an additional 71 retail locations will close doors by early 2023 as Office Depot acts to realign its operational focus and improve company costs. 11. Gap. Recent controversies, including rapper Kanye West, are impacting the clothing retailer's bottom line as we enter the most important shopping season of the year. Last year, the launch of a new clothing line called Yeezy Gap briefly boosted sales, but earnings results rapidly flatline as consumers are less interested in the apparel they now consider overpriced and plain compared to fast fashion brands like Zara or luxury brands like Nordstrom, according to Forbes. In such a distressing environment, Gap announced in October that it would shutter 30% of its locations by 2023, with the goal of having a smaller and healthier fleet of stores. The move will shift most of the stores out of malls. We've been overly reliant on low productivity, high rent stores, President and CEO Mark Breitbart said at the time in a statement. We've used the past 6 months to address the real estate issues and accelerate our shift to a true omni model. The decision means that 220 Gap stores are about to close their doors for good. 12. AT&T. It's not just clothing, homeware, and pharmaceutical retailers that have felt the pinch of the current economic downturn. AT&T, the world's largest telecommunications company in terms of revenue, also announced that it would be closing 250 stores and shedding 3,400 jobs in the process as it begins a reposition of its slumping business wireline segment during the increasingly pressured economic backdrop, according to CEO John Stankey. 13. Pier 1 Imports. In 2020, Pier 1 Imports filed for bankruptcy and announced the shutdown of 450 stores in a desperate attempt to reduce costs and to save its business. But the combination of a pandemic, the worst shipping crisis in modern times, and months-long port congestion derailed the company's plans, making it impossible to re-emerge from Chapter 11 protection. In 2022, slowing consumer spending appears to have been the final nail in the coffin for Pier 1 Imports. The retailer said it would be shuttering its last 492 stores, totaling 942 closures in the past couple of years. 14. Sally Beauty Supply. The Texas-based retail chain that operates over 4,500 stores and distribution centers in the U.S. has announced this week that it will be closing 350 locations by the end of the year. In the past quarter, Sally Beauty reported an almost $20 million drop in its net sales. The company attributed this decrease to being unfavorably impacted by inflationary pressures that continue to impact consumer behavior and supply chain challenges, Business Insider reported. 15. McDonald's. The world's most famous fast food chain obviously isn't closing for good anytime soon, but the brand hasn't been immune to the ongoing downturn, and it's quietly closing low-volume locations by the hundreds. Costs have increased for McDonald's following the pandemic to implement new health and safety regulations, and higher food prices have also eaten into profits. According to the Wall Street Journal, McDonald's is seeing its lowest profits in 13 years, and the company is now taking the cautious route by shuttering 200 outlets at Walmart that don't generate much traffic, leaving only 150 in service across the country. When even some of the biggest brands out there are being forced to make some deep cuts to reduce operational costs, slashing jobs, and closing up shop in the process, then you know for a fact that the economy is falling off the tracks. The worst part is that conditions aren't likely to get any better for consumers or businesses anytime soon. As we just reported a few days ago, even one of the world's richest men is telling the public to avoid unnecessary purchases and to stockpile cash to navigate through the turbulence that is approaching. This is not good news for our iconic brands and not good news for major retailers either. We'll continue to keep track of the retail apocalypse as this situation continues to develop in the coming months. Keep tuned with us and feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching.